The story that you are about to hear is a compilation of documented true facts, featuring characters, events, or places that has played a role in shaping history. Please sit back and listen as I recite this narrative for you. The alleged first female serial killer in the United States was born in 1793 and was hanged alongside her husband for the robbery murders of guests at their inn while wearing her wedding gown in 1820. Her name was Lavinia Fisher, and she was only 27 years old. The location of her birth, her maiden name, or any information about her childhood is unknown. Lavinia grew up to marry a man named John Fisher, and the couple lived near Charleston, South Carolina. The couple made their living operating a hotel called the 6 Mile Wayfarer House, which they managed in the early 1800s. Mysteriously, men who were visiting Charleston began to disappear. As more and more reports were filed with the authorities regarding this missing man, it was determined that they were last seen at the 6 Mile Wayfarer House, which was called such because it was 6 miles north of Charleston, South Carolina. The legend states that she would kill her victims by crushing their heads between her legs. She was an active member of a large gang of highwaymen who operated out of 2 houses in the back country near Charleston, the 5 Mile House and the 6 Mile House. It is not clear whether the 6 Mile House was a hotel, but it did serve as a hideout for a number of outlaws. Lavinia was a very beautiful and charming woman, adding to her popularity in the community and to the business of the hotel. She would always invite men to dinner and ask many questions about their occupation, trying to find out if they had money or not. She would send them up to their rooms with a cup of tea that was actually poisoned. Once the men would drink their tea and go to bed, her husband would go to the room to make sure they were dead by stabbing them. Another version of the legend was that the tea would only put the man to sleep for a few hours. Then, when they were almost asleep, Lavinia would pull a lever and the bed would collapse and drop the victim into a pit. Some believe that there were spikes waiting at the bottom of the pit. But as more and more men went missing, the rumor mill began to do its work. Much of what actually occurred in the alleged murders at the hands of John and Lavinia Fisher has become widely exaggerated through time, so factual details are hard to find. However, contemporary news accounts in the Charleston Post and Courier claim that a vigilante gang went to the Fishers' neighborhood in February 1819 to stop the purported gang activities that were occurring there. Satisfied that they had accomplished their task, the group returned to Charleston, but left a young man by the name of David Ross to stand watch in the area. Early the next day, Ross was attacked by 2 men and dragged before the gang that had terrorized the region. Among them was Lavinia Fisher, to whom he looked for help. However, rather than help him, she choked him and then smashed his head through a window. Ross managed to escape and immediately alerted authorities. Immediately following this incident, another traveler named John Peoples asked if there were any vacancies. Lavinia replied that there was unfortunately no room, but he was welcome to come inside and rest and have some tea. John happened to hate tea, and not wanting to seem rude, he dumped it when she wasn't looking. She interrogated him for hours and eventually said she discovered that in fact, they did have a room. He then went to bed. He felt suspicious about the interrogation and was worried about being robbed. Feeling safer in the chair by the door than in the bed, he dozed until he was awakened by a loud noise. Looking around, he realized that the bed he should have been sleeping in had disappeared into a deep hole beneath the floor. John quickly jumped out the window, got on his horse, and fled to authorities in Charleston. Based on these 2 accounts, the assailants were finally identified by name, something that law enforcement had previously lacked. Police were immediately dispatched to the location, and during the ensuing investigation, Lavinia and John were located along with 2 other gang members. The 6-mile Wayfarer house was thoroughly searched and the grounds dug up. Filled with hidden passages, the sheriff reportedly found items that could be traced to dozens of travelers. A tea laced with an herb that could put someone to sleep for hours, a mechanism that could be triggered to open the floorboards beneath the bed, and in the basement, as many as 100 sets of remains. John Fisher surrendered the group in an effort to protect his wife and shield her from possible gunfire. Later, during the interrogation, he again attempted to protect Lavinia by giving the identities of all involved in the gang. The Fishers pleaded not guilty but were ordered to stay in jail until their trial. In the meantime, their co-conspirators were released on bail. At their trial in May, the jury didn't agree with their innocent plea, found them guilty of multiple robberies and murders, and they were sentenced to hang. However, they were given time to appeal the conviction. During the wait, they occupied themselves making a plan to escape. Housed together in a jail that was not heavily guarded, they began making a rope from jail linens. On September 13, they put their plan in place and used the rope to drop down to the ground. John made it out, but the rope broke, leaving Lavinia trapped in the cell. Not willing to go without his wife, he returned to the jail and the 2 were afterwards kept under much tighter security. In February 1820, the Constitutional Court rejected their appeal and their execution was scheduled for later that month. Lavinia Fisher was held at Charleston, South Carolina jail before her hanging. She had concocted a plan in her mind to make sure that she would not be executed. At the time in South Carolina, you could not execute a woman who was married. When Lavinia mentioned this at her trial, the judge told her that they would kill her husband first, so that she would be widowed. Lavinia made another plan and decided to be executed in a wedding dress. She was a woman of legendary beauty and hoped that with a priest present, she could seduce a man into marrying her. When this failed to happen, and Lavinia realized that she was running out of time, before her executioners could tighten the noose around her neck, she yelled into the crowd, "If you have a message you want to send to hell, give it to me. I'll carry it." Then before they could finish the job, she jumped off the scaffold herself. Not quite reaching the ground, she dangled down into the crowd. Later, onlookers would say they had never seen such a wicked stare or chilling sneer as that which was on 27-year-old Lavinia's face. Legend says she was actually swinging on the noose, screaming and kicking, and still alive for 15 minutes until she finally died. Though many sources say that the Fishers were buried in the Unitarian Church graveyard, located between King and Arkdale Streets in Charleston, this is highly unlikely. There was a Potter's Field Cemetery next to the jail at the time, where most criminals were buried if their bodies weren't claimed by family members. Additionally, church records have been searched, indicating no evidence that she was buried there. It should come as no surprise with a terrible story such as this, that the ghost of Lavinia is said to still roam in Charleston. Almost immediately following her death, locals began to report seeing her face floating behind the bars of the window where she was held. Then, after the Great Earthquake of 1886, people began to report her wandering around in other parts of the neighborhood, as well as the Unitarian Cemetery just a few blocks away. Hey everyone! I just wanted to express how grateful I am that you took the time to listen to my narration. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I am Twisted Mind and please enjoy the rest of your day. Salamat!